So up next, we have with us Eddie Z and Matt from Easy Trading Computers. Now, Russ, Eddie Z Hazelcorn is the Chief Operating Officer of Easy Trading Computers, which, if you don't know, is a trading company on a personal mission to educate traders about trading technology. Eddie Z is a full-time trader and a complete computer nerd who speaks trader language. Eddie Z has a 17-year career as a licensed stockbroker. These days, he enjoys trading his own accounts exclusively, holds an undergraduate degree in accounting from Penn State and an MBA from Lehigh University. Today, he's going to be showing us critical must-knows about your trading computer hardware. Eddie, it's all yours. Oh, I think you're muted, Eddie. Let me unmute you guys. And Matt. Okay, you guys are good now.
Hi, everybody. Hi, everybody. It's Eddie Z here, and I'm here with my business partner, Matt. Matt, can you hear me?
Hey, Eddie. Glad to be here.
Good. Take it away.
Yeah, of course. So first of all, I just want to say thanks and just express a little gratitude here for having us in the room. We're always happy to be amongst such smart people, and I'm sure you're learning a lot so far, and appreciate you guys joining us. Again, my name's Matt, and I'm joined here by Eddie, and I'm going to tell you guys very quickly what we're going to cover. We have what seems like a lot of time right now, but we have to make the best of it because we do want to leave some time for Q&A. So I'll mention that at the top of the hour that there's always a lot of questions, Eddie, that we get about computers because there's not a lot of great answers out there. Excuse me. So we will have Q&A. You can enter at any time your question in the control panel in the question box, and I will take them as they come, and we'll have time to review those. In today's webinar, we're actually going to talk about Windows XP just real briefly because it's important to traders, and we know many traders are still using this platform. That's not the entire topic today, but we just want to mention it more as a forewarning for you guys. The main thing we're going to talk about today is the biggest trading computer misconception and what that is exactly and what it means for you and especially for your trading. And then we're also going to talk about how you can test. Well, actually, Eddie is going to walk through a live demonstration through the formula to figure out whether the computer you're using now, or maybe you have a dedicated one, to know whether it will work for trading. And we're going to show you that step by step. Eddie will walk you through. And then Eddie will actually talk to you about the minimum checklist that you have to have for trading. And I think also Eddie will give away a resource today that people can have all the notes and even above and beyond what we have time to go over today. Isn't that right?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll give away what we're going to go over today in the webinar. We actually have in our complete guide to trading computers, which we will give you access to shortly.
Yeah, Eddie, so the first thing that I want to talk about is how you got started with computers, just in case people don't know.
Sure. So I'm going to bring you back in my time machine to about 1980. I was 11 years old, and a friend of mine got an Apple II. Back in those days, that was the very, very beginning of the personal computer world. And he got this Apple II, and he brought me over to see it. And him and his older brother had set it up in this amazing fashion. They had actually connected it to a telephone, and people were calling in one by one and leaving messages on his computer. And these, the computer was scrolling words across the green and the black and green screen, if you guys remember that, kind of like the picture. And people were posting messages on what he had set up at what at that time was called an electronic bulletin board. And the messages were just about comic books. He set up this bulletin board called the Bat Cave, and I just thought this was the coolest thing in the world. So when I got home that evening, I began a campaign to my parents to get me a computer for the holidays. But what showed up under my tree was not an Apple II, was something called a Commodore VIC-20. And I set it up. I started trying to load programs, and this computer, the way you loaded programs, you had a hard drive. The hard drive was actually a little cassette player, and the programs were stored on little cassettes. Like, remember we used to listen to music on cassettes? Those old things. It would take 45 minutes to load a program. Most of the time it didn't even load properly. And when you did get it to load, this computer didn't do anything like my friend's computer. I was really disappointed When my folks went to bed that night, I got a screwdriver out of my dad's toolbox and I pried this computer open to figure out what was wrong with it. Why was it so underpowered? Why didn't it do what my friend's computer did? And that was the moment where my passion and my interest for making computers bigger, stronger, and faster really came from. It was born in that moment, Matt. I've been a nerd ever since.
I'm never giving you electronics for a Christmas gift because you're going to take it apart. But you had another passion which I thought was interesting to share just real quickly today, which was Wall Street. And so how did you actually get started on Wall Street?
So I was pretty fortunate. My father was a floor trader on the New York Mercantile Exchange. So ever since I can remember, my dad would bring me to work with him. And I'm talking really young, and I'm going to take even further back in time, the 70s. 4, 5, 6 years old, my dad would take me to work with him, and I always loved going with him to work because the energy on the Merc was awesome. Men just carrying on, men behaving badly, the rules of behavior that applied at home did not apply on the exchange. And I just always loved going. And as I became a teenager and would go to work with him, I started asking a lot of questions. What is going on down here? How does this all work? And my father taught me how to draw point and figure charts with a pencil and graph paper. And he explained to me how understanding these formations helps him make money by trading. At that time, they were trading platinum and heating oil futures back in the 80s. So I became extremely interested in Wall Street, and what I decided to do was work on that floor the minute I graduated high school. In fact, like the day after I graduated, I started on the floor as a clerk on the exchange, and I worked every summer, every Christmas break, every spring break while I was in college and graduate school until I finally, when I graduated, I actually got drawn into becoming a stockbroker and was a stockbroker for 17 years. So I was a stockbroker starting from the early 90s all the way to the beginning of the 2000s, and have just been trading my money exclusively and building trading computers ever since. So that's all I know really is Wall Street.
Well, that brings up my next question, which is how did you actually get started building trading computers specifically?
Yeah, so the first trading computer I built was when I finally got my Series 7 license in the early 90s, and I started at this firm, and this firm had a big boardroom, and everybody shared a computer. So we were sitting in this cubicle. The guy next to me had been there for 4 or 5 years. Kind of like this, if you guys remember the movie Wall Street, we didn't have the green and black screens. There was color and black screens, but I just had one screen, and I had a dude to the left, and he dominated like 85% of the screen with his symbols. And because I was the rookie, I got like 5 spaces to put symbols. So I was pretty frustrated, and I went into the branch manager's office. I said, "Look, I can do surgery on this computer and add another screen, and we could see more symbols." And he let me do it. And so that was my first trading computer. And all as my career grew, and this was the 90s, being a stockbroker was like being a rock star. It was a great, great career, a great business to be in. And I was always building these computers, making them faster, stronger, able to handle more and more monitors. As my career progressed, and I was in my own office, the guys in the office were always parading in and out, checking out my setups, and wanting me to build very similar setups. I was that guy with the 4 big CRTs on his desk. So I built a lot of these machines for these guys in my office. So I was always kept busy. My father retired from the exchange. I built him a machine and all of his peers trading computers. But really wasn't until like 2009 when a friend pointed me to a Google search of the term trading computers. And I Googled this term, and I looked at all the companies offering products in this area, and frankly, I was appalled at what I saw. I felt like traders were being taken advantage of in terms of their lack of knowledge. I mean, I get it. I know traders, they just want a big, strong, fast machine. They don't need to necessarily know what's going on under the hood. They just need to know that it does everything they need it to do. So I made it my mission at that point to educate traders on the technology in trader speak, in language that all traders can understand. And that's why we're here today, Matt.
Yeah, well, I like that you just mentioned today's about education, because there's a lot of things that we get to focus on that maybe the trading community doesn't get to see. And one of those things, if we could take a sidebar just real quick, talking about trading computers and talk about why traders should worry about Windows XP, just real briefly.
Yeah, so back in April, Microsoft totally discontinued support and security patches for Windows XP. So now you might be thinking, you know, Microsoft, they've kind of tricked us a number of times over the years, right? If you remember the Y2K nonsense, it turned out to be utterly nothing. Nothing happened. If you remember when they upgraded from XP to Vista, that was like a disaster. And even recently, moving from Windows 7 to Windows 8, another disaster. So I know most of us don't think too highly of Microsoft these days. So when we hear an announcement like this, it's hard to take them seriously. But it is very serious. And let me quickly explain why. All of the operating systems that Windows is designed, the way it's designed is through a very similar architecture. So Windows XP, Windows Vista, Windows 7, Windows 8, they have a very similar source code, very similar architectural source code. And here is the problem. As new security patches come out now for Vista 7 and 8, hackers can take that code, reverse engineer it, and find the equivalent vulnerability inside of Windows XP and exploit it because there's no security patch for XP. So what will happen as time goes on, the more people stay on XP, the more vulnerable they will become. So it is a big deal and actually becomes a bigger deal as time goes on. So all of these vulnerabilities have the potential to give you malware, viruses, something called ransomware, and the biggest one is identity theft. Ransomware is pretty common. We see people downloading and getting ransomware quite a bit here, calling into our tech support. It's kind of scary. Somebody goes to a kind of an adult-related website or a gambling-related website, and they download something, and all of a sudden the computer locks up and demands a credit card number to get unlocked, essentially holding your computer for ransom. And it's still going around in a big way. So these kinds of things can be infuriating if you're a trader, and can be a big mess for you. So if you guys are on Windows XP, it's time to make a change, a serious change. It's also a function of having a pretty old computer. So I probably talked more about Windows XP than we needed to, but I did want to mention those things.
Well, again, it all points back to educating the trading community. This is something that takes maybe a little bit of advanced knowledge to appreciate, but I think we've boiled it down to the essence. So it's not a sales pitch, it's just informational, and I hope it helps the community. But another area I'd like, Eddie, for you to help the community is to talk about specifically why trading computers are needed versus something over the counter.
Right. So people ask me all the time, like, why can't I just go into Micro Center or Fry's and buy a computer off the shelf? And it's a good question. What it really boils down to is the trader's biggest misconception. Most traders, what they don't understand, this misconception is not realizing the sheer quantity of data that's pouring into your machine at the same time. The sheer volume and the level of data just flowing directly into your machine. So here's, let me give you an analogy just to kind of talk about this a little bit. Think about when you go to Netflix and you go to start a movie. Have you ever seen this, the little circle? That's something called buffering. So what your computer is actually doing is it connects to Netflix or YouTube or some service, and it's taking in a giant stream of real-time data, high definition stream of data, and your computer's processor is turning that into that gorgeous high definition picture we're now all used to seeing. Before it actually, it's gathering all this data and putting this all together before it shows it to you. It wants to make sure it has enough data to show you a perfect picture. And that's called buffering. But here's the problem. In trading, we take in a very similar level of data, very similar stream of data, similar to a high definition movie. But we have no time to buffer that data. Your computer has to turn all that data into charts and your indicators in spot on real time. Your prices have to be spot on to the nanosecond. The same with your charts and indicators. Because if your computer can't handle all of that data coming in, that data will, a bottleneck will develop, and what's displayed on your screen will be slightly stale, slightly old. It will be a fraction of a second to several seconds old. And so the price you're seeing on the screen and the indicator that's showing up, just like Mark was just talking about, he has indicators that show when to buy and sell. They might be a few seconds off. And so when you put your orders in to buy and sell, you're going to get executions that don't match up to what you expected. And that's called slippage. Let me show you another example real fast. Have you ever been to a sports bar and it's like NFL Sunday, or you're watching like the NCAA tournament, and they have the same game playing on all the TVs in the bar. The same game on all the TVs in the bar. And a lot of these bars, they're not all HD TVs. They have like a group of HD TVs. They have a couple of old analog TVs laying around. And have you ever noticed that when you see this game, you look at it on the HD TV and on the analog TV, there's a little bit of a time delay between the two TVs, even though it's the same game? Look at this picture. Guy on the left looks like he's going up for a layup. Guy on the right is already taking the shot. This is the exact same game. That's the time delay I'm talking about. And that's what can happen with your trading computer if it's not fast enough and powerful enough to take in all that real-time data and turn it into your prices, charts, and indicators in spot-on real time. And that's really, Matt, what the trader's biggest misconception is, not realizing they're taking in so much data. And so again, when you put that market order in and you get filled at a price you didn't expect, it's called slippage. And if it's happened to you, you probably have done this, what this guy is doing. You ever yelled at your screen? Maybe an expletive? That's what can happen when your machine is not powerful enough. And it's really frustrating. And you know what? If you get triggered psychologically while you're trading because of a bad execution, unfortunately, the truth is, and you guys are experienced traders, or even maybe some beginner traders in here, if you get triggered psychologically while you're trading, you tend to make a series of bad decisions in a row, and it can cascade out of control. So the last thing you need is your computer giving you a hard time. There's so many other things to think about while you're trading. You know, your hardware, what's going on in the background, really needs to be spot on.
Yeah, Eddie, whenever I see this slide, I always imagine, you say series of bad decisions, I always imagine the next picture is him throwing it at the wall, even though he forgot to enter a stop, and he's totally screwed. But what I'd like for you to do today, Eddie, if you could, we promised this at the top of the call here, if you could just walk through and do kind of a demonstration live right now on really how to determine if the computer that you use for trading or we're using for trading would really work. So I'll just turn over screen sharing with you to you.
Excellent. Just send it my way, and we will demo. All right. So, yeah, you guys should see my Google screen. You guys see my browser here?
Yep, there you go.
Excellent. Okay, so as I mentioned, the most important aspect or component of your computer is the processor. The processor is what takes in that giant real-time stream of data and turns it into charts, graphs, and indicators in real time. So to figure out this formula of what makes a lightning-fast trading computer, the most important variable in that formula is the processor. The processor is the engine of the computer. And so here's how you find out what processor you have, what processor's in your current machine. Now, feel free to try to figure this out while you're watching the webinar. That's okay. But again, if I go a little too fast or you're not really following, and I'll try to go through as simply as possible. All of this stuff is in our guide to trading computers, which I promise to show you how to get momentarily. So here's what you do. I'm in Windows 7. In Windows XP and Vista and 7, it's very similar. You're going to click Start. You're going to right-click Computer, and then you're going to click Properties. And I have multiple monitors, so it didn't open on this screen, but you're going to get a window that looks like this. Again, that's Start, right-click Computer, Properties, and you get this screen. Now, if you're using Windows 8, you're going to follow these instructions. I apologize for not having a Windows 8 demo, but there is a reason for that, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So what you're going to do in Windows 8, very quickly, move the cursor to the upper right corner to reveal a little menu that pops out. It's called the Charms menu. Then click on the settings at the bottom of that menu. Then click on Change PC Settings at the bottom. And now on the left side, a new menu pops up, and you're going to click PC and Devices. And then finally, the last button is PC Info. Okay, so hopefully everybody's got that open and followed along. And so you're going to get a window even in Windows 8 that looks similar to this. If you're in XP, the window is smaller. There's some tabs at the top. Click on the General tab. It has the same information as this page. Here is the information you want to get. The processor. My processor is the Intel Core i7 4930K at 3.4 gigahertz. Okay, so you want to get the processor. Take a note of how much RAM you have. This particular machine has 32 gigabytes, and I don't know if you guys can hear that, but there's a pretty wicked lightning storm going on behind me. So if you hear any funny sounds, I apologize. And then also make a note of what operating system you have. This machine happens to have Windows 7 Professional. So again, processor, i7 4930K at 3.4 gigahertz, 32 gigs of RAM, Windows 7. All right, so now that we have then that information, the next thing we want to do is we want to go to a website. The website is called www.cpubenchmark.net. cpubenchmark.net. Now, let the site just load up. Don't click on anything yet. I'll tell you exactly where to click. What this website is a company that has developed something called benchmarking software. Independent company, and people from all over the world have already downloaded and run this software on their computer. Essentially, what the software does is force the computer to run a whole series of formulas and algorithms, come up with the solutions, and measure how fast it can come up with the solutions. But we don't have to run the software because so many people have actually already run it. In fact, you can see here, it says 600,000 CPUs have been benchmarked. So we can look in their database and get our speed numbers. Now, how you do that is this drop down over here. It says select a page. And so what you want to do is just scroll it down to searchable CPU list, and you get a page that looks like this. And then what you want to do is come right here. There's a search box. It's not incredibly intuitive. It is like a little bit like halfway down the page on the right. There's a search box. Go ahead and start typing in your processor. I have the i7 4930K. Now, look what happened here. You see how it's auto finding it? But if I remove just the K, there are two processors here. I don't have this MX. You're going to get a very different result if you don't put in the full processor letter and number sequence. So make sure you get the right one, then click Find CPU. And what this is going to bring you to is the database that gives us something called our benchmark score. In my case, the benchmark score is 13,191. 13,191. Now, what does that mean? The minimum benchmark score for trading is 7,500. 7,500. If your processor's benchmark score is below 7,500, you have a risk of slippage. You have a risk of seeing data on your screen that is slightly stale, slightly old, and could lead to some unexpected trades. The lower the number is, the higher your risk level of slippage. So that's how you find out what processor you have. And so that's the first variable in this formula of having an ultra-fast trading computer. It's the most heavily weighted variable, the processor. The second most heavily weighted variable is your internet speed. And so we're going to go to a website called www.speedtest.net. Speedtest.net, and this site's going to give us our internet speed. Now, this site also has a bunch of advertising on it, so just follow along with me. Don't get sucked into clicking on any of the noise that's on the site. So you see the big green begin test pill-shaped button? That's the one we want to press. So it's going to give us 3 data points here. It's going to give us the ping, the download speed, and the upload speed. Now, the ping is your modem sending a signal to your closest major node or transfer switch and getting an echo back. And we want our ping to be less than 50 milliseconds. We want our ping to be less than 50 milliseconds. The second data point is your download speed. Download speed. In my case, it was 121 megabits, 5 megabits per second. And by the way, we're going to put this up in a checklist form, and it is in that buyer's guide, which I'll show you how to get in a moment. And then the third data point is the upload speed. The minimum for trading is 1 megabit per second. 1 megabit per second. So if any of these numbers don't meet those requirements, you're also at risk of slippage. So we'll put up, actually, why don't we put up that checklist now, Matt?
All right, let's do that. I will show my screen here, and we'll have a checklist. And so you should have a checklist for trading computers.
Yeah, there we go. So benchmark score 7,500 or higher. Your internet speed, you want your ping less than 50 milliseconds, your download greater than 5 milliseconds, and your upload greater than 1 millisecond. Now, the other items in that formula that are less highly weighted, but are certainly important, are things like your RAM, your random access memory. These days, when running trading applications and running things like GoToWebinar, or some educators use Omnovia, or some of these other conferencing pieces of software, they're very resource intensive. And your trading application, it can be very resource intensive depending on what kind of indicators you're running and how many symbols you're watching. So you really need a minimum of 8 gigabytes to run everything you want to run. And we even recommend you go higher than that if you're running a lot of different things at the same time. A lot of different, maybe you're running 3 or 4 trading applications. Sometimes we get people who call into us who are running as many as 4 or more trading applications because they have accounts all over the place. So 8 gigabytes is the bare minimum these days. And then one more time, we'll talk about your operating system. And let's talk about it in a little bit different light. So it's super important to be away from XP. XP, besides having the vulnerabilities, is only 32-bit. And what does 32-bit mean? Well, it's pretty, I'm just going to make it very simple to understand. 32-bit creates a tremendous bottleneck inside your system. It will only recognize about 3.2 gigs of RAM. Even if you had 8 gigs installed, XP is not going to use it. It's not going to recognize it. When you get this Vista, some Vista installs are 64-bit, but almost all 7s and 8s are 64-bit. 32-bit, the analogy I like to use very quickly is I did grow up in New Jersey, which is like the toll booth capital of the world. If you've driven on the highway in New Jersey 20, 30 years ago, lots of tolls, stop every 20 minutes, throw your quarter into the little bucket just to move on, and a lot of times waiting 10, 15 minutes. A toll booth essentially is a giant bottleneck. Well, I now live in Florida, thankfully, and nowadays in just about everywhere they have the Speed Pass or the Fast Pass, which is a transponder you have in your car. You don't have to stop. You don't put a quarter in anymore. They take a $5, but you don't have to slow down anymore. And that just opens up that bottleneck. And that's what 64-bit operating system does for you. Now, I'm sure some of you are wondering, well, what about Windows 8 versus Windows 7? Why you still have Windows 7 there? So here's a story about Windows 8, if you're wondering. Windows 8 works perfectly. There's nothing wrong with it. The biggest problem or complaint is that it has a completely different user interface. You need to really search around and click around to find the same commands and menus everyone's used to seeing from the previous 15 years of operating systems. Windows 8 was designed to be used on a smartphone and a tablet. It wasn't really made for PC users with PC users in mind. And that's why most people, especially traders, for whatever reason, they just don't like it, because that user interface is clunky. It's not intuitive. So the truth is that Windows 7 functions just as well. Windows 8 doesn't have any real improvement in functionality and just creates confusion. So we are still recommending people use Windows 7, at least for the time being. I have read recently that there is a Windows 9 coming out at the end of 2015. So that will be interesting to see if they ever get it right. And it just kind of leads into that whole thing I was talking about, the disappointment with Microsoft. I mean, just from an aside, it's still run on like 90% of computers. They still have a tremendous opportunity if they ever get it right, just from a point of interest point of view. So now, if you guys are wondering, which I'm sure you are, where to get this buyer's guide, let's put up that URL to go to, Matt.
Yeah, so either you can read it off from the screen here, everyone, or I've also put it in the chat box, and I'm sure that Kevin will make that readily available just for you guys today.
realtraderswebinar.com/easy trading. Matt, maybe you want to pass control right on back to me.
Yeah, if you want to show people how to do that.
Sure.
Should be there for you.
Yeah, so here's what the screen looks like. And then you can just go ahead and put in your email address. It'll get emailed directly to you in a matter of moments. And then, boom, you will have it. Now, just very quickly before we open it up to Q&A, we did put a very special offer together just for people of the Day Trading Masters Fest. You guys took your whole day to come out and see the excellent presenters. Really a great team. Thank you, Kevin. You guys have done a great job at Real Traders Webinar to put on a fantastic event. When I emailed my people, I called it the Woodstock of trading education. So if you guys remember Woodstock, maybe I'm dating myself, Matt, with all these 80s and 70s and 60s references.
It's all right.
So anyway, I did put together a super special deal for you guys. It's on my computer that's called the Apache Easy Trading Computer. It comes with the computer by itself or with monitors. So there's a couple different price points, but here are the main points. It comes with this new i7-4790 processor. Benchmark score is 10,400, so no worries there. It comes with a military class 4 motherboard. What does that mean? Because I know you're not going into battle with it. Well, in a way you are, because as traders we're very heavy users. We're power users. We sit in front of this machine for a lot of hours, and that thing's got to be rock solid reliable. So the reason I use these motherboards is because they have these components built onto them that have been independently tested for heat and vibration. Now, unless you live in California, vibration isn't that big of an issue, but heat kills electronics. So reliability is why I use that stuff. It comes with the minimum 8 gigs of RAM, so you're covered there. It comes with something called a solid-state hard drive. A lot of people ask us about solid-state hard drives. What are they? The best way to think about it is think of your iPhone or your Android phone. Inside your Android phone or your iPhone, all those apps that you download, all that music that you download, all those pictures you take, all of that stuff has to get saved somewhere. Well, there's no little spinning disk in there. There's no spinning little hard drive in there like you almost all have in your current computers. There's a little flash memory chip. It's a chip. It has no moving parts whatsoever. Have you ever noticed your phone can take a pretty good whack against the ground? I mean, I know I drop mine probably once every other week or so, and it still works, which I always find amazing. Imagine if you did that with your computer. The point is that solid-state hard drives have chips in them, no moving parts. So your computer will boot up 7 times faster than the standard hard drive you have in your computer now. The reliability factor is so much higher because there's no moving parts. There's no parts that can wear out or get out of calibration. So it's a really big improvement in overall user experience to have a solid-state hard drive. And I recommend that any new computer you buy have the solid-state hard drive. All of our computers come with a 5-year warranty and lifetime technical support. Everything inside this computer case we cover for a full 5 years. Now the package with the monitors, everything you need to set up 3 monitors, the computer, the keyboard, mouse, speakers, everything you need for $18.98. Or if you already have monitors, the computer by itself is $13.99. And there's a couple of bonuses that come with the computer, and you can check those out. They're all really cool trading bonuses that I've put together that are very, very popular. There's a video here. Check that out at your leisure. You might want to just mark this page. Just go ahead and mark it as a favorite. That's in Firefox. It's different in Explorer and Chrome. But go ahead and mark it as a favorite. We do have PayPal financing, and we also have 2 other ways to finance, including no credit check. So that's some pretty cool stuff. You can leave your money in your trading account, and you can trade while you can pay for it while you trade. So that's a nice feature we have. And then lastly, we have 2 ways you can actually get this computer for free in the form of rebates. If you open a new account at TradeStation or at FXCM, both of these firms will reimburse about 20% of the commission or the spread that you pay until your trading computer is completely paid for. And so all that contact information is on this page. So check those out if you've been thinking about changing companies that you work with in terms of brokerage. So with that, Matt, let's go ahead and open it up to questions.
Oh yeah, and we do have a lot. I'm looking at a full page here, but before I do,
this room is like, I feel like I'm in Giant Stadium.
Echo. I just wanted to mention that we did just have a sale on this. We occasionally have sales on the deal that's on your screen, and the phones rang off the hook. It is closed now, so this is something that's available really uniquely. If you go to the public site, you're not going to see this. Of course, you can always call. We'll take care of you. Make sure you tell them where you came from. But I just wanted to mention that this was a very popular sale because it gets you a Corvette for a very low price in terms of a computer. But it's not on the public site any longer. So I just wanted to make people aware.
Just for people on this webinar. That's it.
Right. So you got to use that link. So thanks for extending that, Eddie. And let's get to some questions because there's a lot of good ones here. And this is your least favorite question, but we get it a lot. What's the deal with Apple? You didn't talk about that today. Can I trade on it?
Yeah. So I get this question about Apple computers all the time. And so Apple has become very popular. Their Macs are very popular, especially as the iPhone became so popular. Apple computers have become more popular. And I get it. They have a really nice operating system. It's very intuitive to use, and it tends to be very stable. Sometimes people feel it's more stable than the Windows environment, which was probably true many years ago, but is no longer true. Here's the thing, though, and you can thank our buddy Steve Jobs for this. Apple, over the years, their strategy has been to control all the hardware and all the software. They never really revealed their source code of their operating system to allow software manufacturers to design software for Apple computers. That's why you don't see Ninja running on Apple. You don't see TradeStation running on Apple. The only way to access a broker is through some web-based application, which can be slow and clunky. So what people do is they try to install kind of a hacked version of Windows on their Apple computer, and there are 2 ways to do that. With one's called Boot Camp, and the other's called Parallels. And the problem is that once you load up these versions of Windows, then install your trading application, it uses up almost all of the resources on your Apple computer that the computer just really bogs down, and it can't turn all that real-time data flow into charts and indicators in real time. And it just doesn't work, bottom line. So thanks Steve Jobs for that, but that's how it is. Apples just don't work for trading. I have many customers who run They use Apple for all their browsing, all their email, all their Facebook stuff, and then they have a PC that they use just for trading. And the funny thing about Apple is that their stuff, relative to the amount of processing power you get, even if it did work for trading applications, it's really overpriced compared to PC in terms of the processing power you get. So like they have a $4,000 computer that runs with that you can get that's where you start to approximate the benchmark score that you actually need. And that's another huge problem. So it just, bottom line is it's not going to work for you the way you hope.
All right. And then here's a good question. We don't get it a ton, but we do get it. And it was from Keith. He asks about power supplies. And he was asking, when you ship internationally, say like the UK, on your towers versus laptops, how do they deal with a different power supply, a different power source over there?
Good question. So in North America and much of South America, we're on 110 volts. And the vast majority of the rest of the world is like 220 to 240 volts. So fortunately, the power supplies we put in our desktops auto-detect the voltage. So that's not really an issue for us. The same with the laptops. So the only thing you need is the little tip that plugs into the wall. Obviously, ours will come with the American-style 3-prong. So if you're in Europe, a lot of them have that 2-prong. There's a couple different versions of it, but all you need is a little $5 adapter, and our computers will work fine anywhere in the world. Good question, though. It used to be a bigger issue.
The next one is about internet. There's really two people that ask questions. So first of all, what affects the speed that you get at your house? And then DW also asked, could you talk about internet connections just in general?
Yeah. You know what? It's a really good question because everywhere in the country, at least in the United States, I'm sure it's true of the world, is you're just subject to whatever's in your neighborhood. I was reading an article yesterday that there's quite a few places that are running a full gigabit per second speed now in the United States, which is phenomenal. I'd love to have that. But in a lot of rural areas, you might be subject to either no internet connectivity or you have to run satellite, and satellite tends to be not consistent, have weather issues, connectivity issues, very, very long ping connection times, which all those things can be a problem. But or maybe you can only get DSL that only runs at 1.5 megabits per second. So I can just tell you in my neighborhood, I'm on Comcast cable. I pay for 100 megabits per second, and as you guys saw, I get about 120, which is used to be. I mean, Matt, you remember even when we were doing this like 6 months ago, people were super impressed with that. I guess it's not that big a deal anymore. But you know what? I have DSL here as a backup, because as traders, you need to consider having another provider as a backup. So if you have cable, you can't have, usually you only have one available cable provider in your neighborhood. The other option is a phone company. For me, it happens to be AT&T, but they don't have UVerse in my neighborhood. I just have like, the fastest I can get is only 1.5 megabits per second. And it's ultra frustrating to trade on that. I mean, it works, it stays connected, but things are slow. It just doesn't feel right. But it's good as a backup. So if the cable goes out, at least I'm not totally blind to where my stocks are. I'm a stock trader. I'm not blind to what's going on. I could see what's going on. I could exit the market. I could raise my stops up really tight to where, a few cents below where the stock's trading or whatever. And I can take essentially, emergency maneuvers because the cable's out. And so you're really going to be subject to what's available in your neighborhood. if you have cable and it's not working for you, call the cable company, see if you can get a faster speed. Same with DSL. Another thing, I live in Florida. We've had the most wicked summer in terms of lightning storms in quite a while. And I had Comcast out here last week because of another lightning strike. So little lightning strikes and power surges can take out splitters on the outside of your house, in your attic, all the way out, the whole line out to the pedestal or the telephone pole outside of your house. And it's kind of funny because I was still getting internet connection, but I get these little bursts. So like you have TradeStation on and it freezes, and all of a sudden all this data rushes in at the same time and I get all this flashing of everything catching up. All it was one bad splitter. And that can happen to people too. So you got to keep and there's really nothing I can do about it is just except for getting it fixed every time, which is, that's why it's good to have a backup. So I do recommend you have a backup provider. It can be something as simple as a cellular provider where your phone acts as a hotspot. Now that's very slow. You do not want to trade on that full time. It's a backup, meaning that your main service goes out, you're able to log into your trading platform using your cell as a hotspot, and you either get out of the market or make your stop so amazingly tight that you can't ruin whatever position you're in. So I wouldn't use it for full-time trading. So having a backup makes sense. If your cable company's not doing it for you, call the phone company, and vice versa. So I think I beat that horse pretty good.
Well, we talked about it extensively, but the thing of it is, like you said, your processor, the computer you have, number one variable, number two is your internet connection, and there's other things that go along with that, but those are the two biggest things, so we can't stress the importance enough. I wanted to share one comment just real quick. We're running out of time. Just because I do hear this on the phone once in a while. Scott says he has a very powerful machine. He's got redundant systems, RAID disks, 8 monitors, 64 gigabytes of RAM, solid state, water cooled. I mean, talk about Corvettes. This is the Lamborghini. But he mentions he spent a fortune, and he's noticing that Eddie stuff, Easy Trading Computers, is at a great price. Having done it himself, he recommends going the easy route and having someone else take care of it for you. I hear that quite a bit. I don't know about you, Eddie, on the phone, but I thought I would just share that.
Thank you. Thank you for mentioning that in the chat. We do hear that from time to time. I think we bring a number of things to the table for you guys. Number one is I still trade stocks every single day. I know exactly what you go through on a daily basis. I think you guys can tell I'm really passionate about it, and I get it from that trader's point of view. I think one of the most important things is that we have that 5-year warranty, so we have your back. The guys who do the tech support are my guys. They build the computers. They know these machines inside and out. It's not like when you call Dell tech support and you finally get somebody on the phone and they, something was always lacking in the communication with tech support of these major corporations. You know what I mean? They're using voice over IP. There's a little delay. They're on the other side of the planet. There's just weird. It's just a weird communication, and it never goes as smoothly as it should. So I believe our tech support is a premium service, and the warranty is, we have your back. We want your system up and running, so you don't have to worry about it, and you know that if something goes wrong, we're going to be here to help you. And that's why I think, there are a lot of ways of doing it yourself. You could build a car yourself, I suppose, if you wanted to. Putting a computer together is really not as challenging probably as building a car, but it's nice to know that you have someone to help you if something goes wrong. I think that's the big point, and I do appreciate the comment.
Yeah, the computer's not supposed to get in the way. It's supposed to be transparent, and you just do your trading. We're in the final few minutes, so Eddie, could we do just like a lightning round, popcorn? You ask the questions, you give some quick responses here, because I still have a ton of questions.
Bye, bye, bye.
Sounds good. Number one is, do you ship internationally?
Yes, we ship internationally. There's a link over here on the right side, international terms. You can check that out. All over the world, everywhere.
Yep, and that was about UK. That's definitely covered, so thanks for asking. What size monitor package, or what size monitor does the package you're showing on your screen come with from Bill?
Comes with 19.5-inch LED backlit monitors. If you call in, if you want bigger monitors or you want the computer to support 4 monitors and you want a quad package, we can upgrade anything you want.
Can do whatever you need. So Stan asks, can he use USB adapters with laptops to get more screens?
Yes, you can. They make a special USB adapter, plugs into the USB port. Essentially, the adapter is like a little external video card, and then you can plug a monitor into that. And they work very well. They're HD now.
Just a little sidebar, if people do want to call, they have questions beyond this, or just want to know how to set something up, what's the best number to reach you guys?
800-387-5250 right here. It's also in the chat. We're standing by and happy to help with any questions you have on the technology. My goal is to make sure you get it and you get your needs completely satisfied. So it's just like Matt said, your computer should feel almost transparent. Your computer is your window to the markets. And if your window has dirt on it, you're not going to see what you need to see.
Last question that we have time for is, what kind of graphics cards do you guys use inside your desktops?
We use all kinds of graphics cards. It really depends on how many monitors support you need, but everything is digital now. Everything is high definition, lots of memory on them, and they do all the graphical work. But it just depends on how many monitors support. We use NVIDIA products, Intel products, and AMD products for graphics. So we use all the big manufacturers.
Sorry, I lied. I looked, and there's quite a bit more questions about laptops. Do you have them? That's my final question.
Final question is, yes, we do have laptops. They're over here on this laptops page. You can check those out at your leisure. We do have laptops. But keep in mind with laptops, 99% of the laptops you see in the stores and online are not fast enough for trading. They will not have that benchmark score. So ours are. They have the benchmark score of right around 8,000, and they will get it done. So, your average i5, mobile i5, or even a lot of the mobile i7s are not fast enough for trading. So,
with that, any final thoughts, Eddie?
I want to thank everybody for showing up today to the Woodstock of trading events, trading education. I want to thank Kevin and all the guys at Real Traders webinar. Certainly appreciate you guys having us on, and I wish that the trend be with all of you. Thank you.